Hey everyone, welcome back to From A to Built with me, Bryson Rayome, and my co-host Chris James. This is episode 2 in our 7-part series with Pastor Martin, who's the founder and CEO at Logos Faith Development. And today we're digging into one of the most misunderstood parts of faith-based housing, which is the financing piece. Calling this episode Financing Faith. And we're breaking down how Logos is structuring privately funded affordable housing on church-owned land. We talk about things like the capital stacks, risk, their underwriting discipline, and how churches can unlock the value of their land without losing control of their mission. So if you've ever wondered whether faith-based development can be both mission-driven and financially rigorous, this conversation gets very real and very practical, and I promise you it's not horribly boring at all. So let's jump right in. So happy to be back here with you, Pastor Martin, for our 7-part series on Logos Faith Development.
Yeah.
Today, we want to kind of pull back the curtain on what really makes these projects work from a financing perspective. Really.
Yes.
I think that's a big topic of conversation right now is how do these deals come together? Everyone knows how difficult it is to do financing in the affordable world and things like that. So the discipline behind your mission, how your team's working on it, what's unique that you're doing in the industry that maybe other people aren't thinking about, and how it all ties together back to working with churches overall.
Absolutely.
So jumping right in, when people hear faith-based development, they often assume donations, public subsidies. Is that a model Logos is using, or how do you guys work through those pieces?
Yeah, I mean, so when I started in this business in development and focusing on faith-based development, focusing on solving the problem with churches regarding their underutilized or unused church land, and making churches relevant and impactful and vision-focused again, as opposed to just problem-focused.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about LIHTC and the tax credit model and public subsidies. So having come from the private sector, I assumed this had to be solved in a private sector way. I had really good role models and mentors. SDS Capital Group, big shout out, was one of them, absolutely, that were already trailblazing in this area. And the fact of the matter is I didn't even know that there was a way to finance these projects through tax credits, for example. So we reverse engineered a typical development deal and found the gaps and challenges as it related to trying to get to a reasonable ROI, IRR, and other fundamentals of work. And what we came up with, which just followed the vision and mission of the churches we were talking to, was joint venture partnerships. And the top line takeaway of that is that's what made these deals work. So problem, these deals won't pencil when we have to acquire land and pay taxes. That's a really simple way.
Yeah.
When developer A, okay, I want to leverage the changes in the density bonus laws at the state level and the city level. I want to take advantage of ED1 and the permutations that came before. But I got to go buy this property. And the moment I buy it and transfer title, I'm going to trigger taxes and the tax exemption is going to go away, et cetera. So by focusing on what the problem was, we reverse engineered to the solution, and the solution is the Logos model.
Mm-hmm.
So when we partner with churches, and of course we're going to talk about how this is great for churches, but here's the economics, right? When we partner with churches, they contribute their land into a new joint venture entity, and there is no site acquisition. Site acquisition issues taken off the table. Mm-hmm. When we partner with churches and make them a full, free, and fair partner, they bring in their nonprofit, their 501c3 tax status. That takes off the issue of, number one, substantial tax penalties when you transfer title, and then number two, allows us to apply for the tax welfare exemption, which then forgoes, defrays, stops, exits the other tax issues that occur down the line. Those two problems solved now turn the model, the pro forma, and the possibilities of the project into a reasonably returning project that you could square up with any developer in the market rate arena, stabilized by vouchers. Mm-hmm. And that is not just the secret sauce. That's what makes us nearly or more competitive as most developers building grade A, et cetera, product in the market.
I love it.
Yeah.
I also love your honesty about getting into the affordable world, getting into light tech, getting into tax credits. I had the exact same experience.
Yep.
Where, I mean, you get a 4-year degree on it.
Yep.
And I started going down that road, and I was a month in, I'm like, I'm out.
Yep.
And then I just found the people that did it for a living, that this is all they do, and I would partner with them because it is so complex.
It is.
And so convoluted at the end of the day. So trying to figure that out. So I love you just said, I'm just going to figure this out over here without that and see how that works. And that drove you to what ended up being ultimately a better solution in terms of how do you develop this type of housing in a better, faster manner, right? So,
well, and I know we're going to get there in your questions, which are brilliant, by starting with the problem in mind and focusing on the solution, we combine that with what are the outcomes that the church is seeking, the community is seeking, the city's seeking, the mayor's seeking, and we're seeking, for example. And that allowed us to sort of create a really unique widget that allowed us to bring in, the cooperative and allowed us to bring in HTA and allowed us to bring in this third party and that third party and turn it almost into an external internal team that could find more cost savings. And really what we're doing is attacking a problem with the best solutions possible. So by diving into the deepest end of the pool, right, the shallow end is, here is private family foundation, here's $4 million.
Yeah.
Whew. And that's a great place to be swimming. It's warmer and it's less dangerous.
Yeah.
Or here's a HUD grant. These are all $3 million, $4 million, et cetera. Well, by diving to the deepest end of the pool, that our pencils have to be sharp enough that this has to stand up on its own in the marketplace of investors and lenders. And we're seeing it now, right? Meaning we're converting, we're getting construction loans, it's moving forward. Now we've gotten enough expertise in the toughest area with the brawlers that we are now able to go to the shallow end and add to our capital stack grants, forgivable loans, 3% interest loans, forgivable, grants, loans that get converted into equity. And these are from private family foundations, and these are from mission-driven investors and purpose-driven investors that are really more focused on the impact than on the return.
Okay.
So now it's a blend of public and private. Now our capital stack is a blend of public and private. So if we take a grant from the government, that's a blend of public and private. If we take a grant from a family foundation, that's private.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is a turbocharged model. That is a turbocharged pro forma, by the way.
Yep.
That is a highly competitive pro forma when you have returns already reaching, just for the sake of argument, guys, 12, 13%, and we input a $3 million grant that is non-recourse and not expected to be paid back. Yeah. Now you have competitive returns.
Nice. And that you kind of answered my second question leading to the third, around when you're working with these churches, and, they have these pieces of land, and it's this, they've had it for years and they haven't known what to do with it. And you come to them and you say, we have this solution. How do you work with the church? And how do you make sure it's a fair, equitable situation for them to where it really is a positive experience for them, and it's helping them extend their mission for the next 20 to 100 years, whatever it is, by doing this program? That's a big question that I hear all the time of like, well, what is the church really giving up to get this? And there's always that kind of question there.
The problem most of our churches and denominations face in the year of our Lord 2026 is a massive decline in membership and the attendant tithes and donations that go with that. That is a symptom of a bigger spiritual malaise. Churches are facing this enormous problem of becoming less and less relevant. When their job is, and we can get into the theology of it, but when their job is to be a light unto the world and a disciple to nations, and to actually draw people to them, to lead a better life and have a better belief system that makes them both more successful, gives them a chance of eternity in my book, and allows them to do good and do well. And so that is the problem. It's metastasizing in the United States. What do they have amongst the many different tools and levers to turn that around? Well, there is no better tool than their belief. Look, I'm a pastor, so bear with me.
Yeah.
There is no better tool than their belief in Jesus Christ. There you go. And they're sitting on thousands of acres of land.
Mm-hmm.
There's no better tool than their belief in a higher power that loves them, et cetera. But the practical reality is they're sitting on millions and millions of acres of underutilized, actually just unused land.
Mm-hmm.
Church with parking lot, block after parking lot, block after parking lot. I can't even explain the opportunity, although you're getting an idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it isn't, and so this soul deficit can become a soul surplus if they convert that land into housing that fits their vision. This is, God gave this church this vision. God gave this church this mission. It's been transmitted to the pastor, and he or she has fed it to the flock, and they understand what their vision and mission is now. And a part of that is to clothe the naked, and it's to take care of the widow, and it's to feed the hungry. That's biblical. All those can be met and matched through new housing that they're directly partnered in. So Logos provides a way forward for them to go from a spiritual deficit to a spiritual surplus. They just have to look at it with fresh eyes, which aren't so fresh. It's thousands of years. It's been in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also it seems like, when this all started, we all went through COVID. And then that was just another nail in the coffin with the churches, right? Because now people can't go to their churches, and you had years there.
That's right.
And then a lot of people didn't come back to the churches.
That's right.
Because they're, all right, well, I can do this online now. And that was something that was even more difficult. And is it all housing, or is it highest and best use for the church? Like, hey, this is what's going to work best. Maybe it's not housing.
Yeah. I think cooperative is going to help us work on that.
Yep.
Guys, you guys come from a massive TI, renovations, beautification of storefronts, and and I mean by the hundreds of projects. You're solving between, and I may call it, I don't know if it's called the General Hospital, but you're the old LA County. You're solving across an entire master plan, and you've solved beautiful art galleries in Beverly Hills.
Yep.
Okay. Well, all of that is churches. So there are churches right now on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. There are churches at Wilshire and Rodeo, 3 blocks from the synagogues, that absolutely should be converted into amazing live work, into high-end retail, into fabulous art galleries and cafes, let alone the projects we often deal with, which is 60, 70, 80, 90 units of affordable housing. So this is a massive palette. It's a massive canvas to paint on. Right now, Logos has been solving in the affordable. Where we want to go with key strategic partners with the cooperative is, you're a church and you're on this side street. We can solve for that.
Yep.
You're a church and you're on Wilshire Boulevard. We can solve for that. So it won't all look like affordable housing. It'll look like what's the highest and best use for that particular location.
To help them kind of continue on.
Realize their vision and mission. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, imagine a cafe, Father Greg Boyle, shout out to Father Greg Boyle, et cetera. They have a training program and a bakery in East LA.
Yeah.
Well, the cafe is at Roman's Bookstore here in Pasadena. That's the cafe that Father Greg Boyle's nonprofit feeds their pastries and stuff, and their workers are have come out of the system, ex-prison inmates, et cetera. And that's at the Roman's Bookstore right here. And so now imagine the number of churches where you could put that in. That's highest and best use.
Yeah.
And that's kingdom service.
Yeah, definitely. And then financially, from the church side, are they investing in the deals, or are they just putting up the land for these?
Yeah. So the church contributes, now on the practical application side of how did the model work. The church contributes their land into a new joint venture limited partnership. That contribution is so sizable and meaningful. That is, in essence, the contribution.
Yeah.
The church contributes their 501c3 nonprofit status. What does that really mean they're contributing? That means they're contributing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 110 years of good work in the community that has been vouchsafed by the IRS and vouchsafed by the state, saying you guys deserve to have nonprofit status. Here's your 501c3. So those two contributions of land and then nonprofit status absolutely turbocharges the engine of the model and the performance and the analysis, and makes them a complete and equal partner in the deal. Let alone the fact that, and this is good, there shouldn't be. No city council person, mayor, planning department, DWP, et cetera, is going to want to ignore an email or a communication or a phone call from a bishop or presiding elder of a pastor of a 1,000-member flock of a 500 church denomination, et cetera, et cetera. These are marginalized oftentimes. Don't love that word because of the amount of latent power that's actually in our denominations.
Yeah.
But let's just use it because it's a word and currency. Quote unquote, marginalized churches and denominations that have been waiting to get into the game. There is no amount of uncoiled power that they have when they choose to focus and use that power to say to the powers that be, it's our time to develop now.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult for the powers to be not to respond to that, especially in election years.
Yeah, definitely. Well, something that's interesting to me, putting on my private development hat,
Totally.
is you've come up with something unique here. We watched kind of the zoning and the laws change over the last couple of years, especially with it as it relates to by right development with the churches. You've figured out something that works. And most people, I will say, especially in the development world, when they find something like that, they keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want people to know. So I will say it's amazing that you're coming on and you're just being so open about this is how we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because we all know everyone's going to be like, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go try and do that.
Yes.
So that's interesting. And there's a bigger kind of question there of, I think that will happen.
I think it's
You're
happening.
going to see people take this idea and say, well, I can do that. And they're going to rush after these churches and start making promises.
Yeah.
So how do churches protect themselves? And how have you seen these deals go south if they're not working with a group that has done it, that has systematized it, that has great templates, that they've gone through it from an ethical standpoint to say this works for all parties?
Absolutely.
As opposed to just opportunistic people jumping into the game and saying like, yeah, let's get after this.
Yeah.
How have you seen those go south? And what's the words of wisdom to churches?
So the first thing I would say is, in the year of our Lord again, 2026, we shouldn't underestimate our churches. There's ChatGPT, there's Google, there's the native generational wisdom that exists in a church already. Auntie Patterson and Deacon Farley and Brother Patterson have a wisdom and a knowledge about how humans are that runs pretty deep. And my experience is it may take a minute, but they can often, not always, suss out the imposters from the authentic developers and people who actually care and give a DRN about something. The other thing I would say is Logos is typically done best after one or two developers has already approached a church. And they've actually gone far down the road, almost to contracts. And their attorney has then said, what was said is not in the contracts. It's an okey doke. It's a bait and switch. The answer to your question is, if I were a church, I would focus on understanding God's vision and really focus on that and getting clear on your mission, going back to basics, and then forming an internal church team, and then making a decision as to the results and the outcomes you want. Now, that process, taking a break, here I am, church, and I have 2 blocks of parking lots. It's unbelievable. A church may go, okay, we're going to take this to market, let alone the developers that have sent them postcards. Those are the developers to run from. Postcards. Or knocked on their door. So what saith the Lord? This is the Lord's vision for my church. What has been our mission historically as a church? We've had one. If we go back and go back into the record, we've actually had a mission, and it's almost always going to be the same if they're biblical. It is going to be to clothe the naked. It is going to be to shield and protect the widow, to make sure the widow's taken care of, and that means a lot of things. And it's going to be to feed the hungry. Okay, and then, we don't have a team that's expert. Form an internal team that's looking out for the best interests of the church and believes in the pastor's that the pastor has access to a higher power that he can listen to or she can listen to. And then these are the results we're seeking. The results may not be to make $212,000.12 every year. The results may be we want to convert this land and really serve those that need it the most. We want to make this amount of impact. We want to have a cafe on site with folks that used to be in the system. We may want to redesign and transform our clothing program, our feeding program, our shelter, et cetera. Come up with what's important as the outcome and results, and then do your homework as it relates to the developer you're talking to. There are many developers that knock on church doors and want to do church deals. And there are many developers that do. And some of them are excellent. Many of them provide us the access we need to those churches when we go through those doors, because we're the only developer that we know that only builds on underutilized and unused, the only one we know, and builds affordable housing and housing, et cetera. So if at this tick of the clock, a land partner came to us and they weren't a church or denomination, we would so far say no to building with them because we know what we're good at doing.
Yep.
The business that we say we're in is the real estate development business. The business we're actually in is solving problems for churches that have felt left out in the cold and that no longer are matching their vision and mission with what they were intended to do in the beginning. And when we stick to the business we're in and the business we're supposed to be in, we're the only developer that we know that follows this process and understands how to communicate with churches and denominations this way.
I love it. And when you get so mission focused on there,
Yes.
Obviously you have to look at your underwriting and your returns in a different way. So as you've been bringing this out to market, coming full circle to talking about the finance on these deals.
Totally.
What's the response been from lenders, investors, trying to get that construction financing?
Yeah.
How's it been hitting the market, and what's the response been?
Since we are faith-based, and since there is such an element of, Pastor Martin, this is a church talking to me. We've been bamboozled so many times. Forget the development. We've been bamboozled by the paint contractor that said that they were going to do A and it ended up being B. So that's just a paint contract, guys, let alone a 50-unit project, a 100-unit project. We want to be evaluated and judged by the best developers in the field because we're faith-based. We want our model, our analysis, our third parties, our engineers, our construction managers, our project managers, our architects, our whole entire widget to be able to go up against any other mainstream developer and actually say, not only are they faith-based, but they're just excellent. They won't spare a dime. They won't unearth a better process. They won't go deeper into AI. There's no more mature developer than Logos because they know the margin for inaccuracy is unacceptable because we serve God and we serve churches and denominations. We serve the highest purpose that I believe you can serve, which is to serve the kingdom and to serve the kingdom's ambassadors, which are churches and denominations. Our focus is on process and delivering results. It starts with our focus on the church's vision and the church's mission and the church's problems and resolving that. And what that means is we often say no to deals and projects. They don't just have to pencil. They have to pencil well.
Yeah.
They have to pencil well. The investment committee has to think so. My external consultants have to think so. And they have to be in it for the right reasons themselves. If they can't surface for me a clear understanding of what their vision and mission is, the project could get 28% IR returns, et cetera. We will walk away. It's all got to line up. It means it's a very narrowing field of projects that we'll actually work on because we have to deliver 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing that stands out about Logos is just the team you're assembling. I mean, not just on the design and construction side, but definitely on the capital partners, lenders, advisors side. I mean, you already touched on it a bit, but yeah, can you just talk a little bit more about the caliber of people that you're looking for and how you evaluate your partners when you're trying to bring them into this deal?
Absolutely, Chris. Well, let me go back because I want to answer, because the first part of what you said to that actually helps me answer. So when we're talking to lenders and investors, we want to, by the very nature of what we're presenting, the accuracy of our models, the accuracy of our economics and our analysis, and the third parties we're bringing to the table, the strategic partners, cooperative, et cetera. We want to have answered the question they haven't asked, which is the whole faith-based angle.
Yeah.
And is this performer going to stand up in the real world? And have you gotten 3 bids and all that? We over answer the question of quality control and process right up front because we already know that's in the back of some investors and lenders' minds. So I just want to answer that a little bit better. Caliber of team, et cetera. So it goes back to the same thing. We're serving a higher power, and we're serving that higher power's emissaries in this world. we have to have the best team possible. And it means that we have to be focused on not just talent, innate talent and gifts, which too many people just focus on that, but also on the values and the principles that they bring to bear. Someone could be a pretty talented individual, but have great values and principles and be able to come to me at the office at 6 p.m. on any given evening and say, Pastor, it's not really penciling for the church, actually. I know we can get this thing through, but we got to go back to the drawing board. We got to talk to the church. We got to make things better before we present to the lenders. That is talent, gifts, capacity combined with good values and principles. So I try to hire for both. And I know you do too.
Yeah.
But I think that if you go behind the scenes at Logos, more often than not, we are at the end of the day led by values and principles. Here's an example. I may get very excited by a deal. And I may run with that excitement for 72 hours. I can't believe this is working out this way, et cetera, et cetera. And there will be someone on my team that will land the airplane into have we really had a conversation with them about their vision and their mission? Or any number of elements along that line that will have this pastor and this real estate developer walk away from the deal that the real estate bro, the real estate guy would never have walked away from. That happens regularly. That's because my principles and my values, I think are becoming a part of the DNA of my company, and that we answer to a higher power's values and principles are a DNA, so that even my team members and my staff can come to me and call a timeout and say, there's another way we need to look at this, or I don't think we should proceed because of this. That means it's beginning to take a life of its own based on standards over personalities. So that's what we're trying to be led by.
Well, what I really hear you talking about is, this other concept of just risk and how you evaluate risk.
De-risking.
Yeah, de-risking. And I mean, normally that's a quantitative exercise. We got to de-risk the site.
Yeah.
We got to
Right.
Got to de-risk the drawings. Make it investable. But you're bringing this other kind of emotional, like this EQ mentality to the table, and that's hard sometimes. Like, I guess a better question to ask is, when did you see a risk that was too great to take for Logos?
When we've been approached by a land partner and the focus has been on the individual member or members in that team, personal financial needs over the needs of the entire church and denomination.
No, it makes tons of sense. We step back a minute. I mean, you talked a little bit about the kind of internal finances of the church, a pastor making only $50,000 a year. No one can survive on that income. So you got a lot of dual income priests that are out there. But
Totally.
If you think about a church, let's say it's a 70-person, 150-person congregation. Financially, you're talking about basically running a small business.
Right.
I mean, if I was to guess, I'd say you need cash inflow around $1 million, $1.25 million per year
To do it right.
to do it right.
To do that small-sized church right.
To get all of that capital from pure donations, pledges and plates every Sunday, that's a heavy lift.
That's right.
Especially when time of income inequality and
got it,
people's
Chris.
personal savings dwindling. So the question is, from your perspective, I mean, do churches need to just officially get into the real estate game just in order to have passive income so they can practice their faith traditions?
Yeah. I think that when churches get back to what they were intended to be, which was to be a light unto the world, and get refocused on vision and mission, and refocus on outcomes, the means find themselves. You know that, guys. You do this all the time in project management and development. Look, when you've slept a full night and your state is better, you start to see solutions more than problems. I'm answering your question. Our churches they feel like their back is against the wall and they've lost so much. My response is, you've already lost so much. Your back is already against the wall. Go find your quiet prayer closet and go back to the Lord and ask him to remind you what the intention and purpose was in the beginning. And go get some spiritual rest. church that's only bringing in $200,000 a year and you really need $1 million to make it work. Go actually and do the counterintuitive thing and go back to the book of Acts basics of what church was intended to be, and you're going to find the solutions and the way out of no way. God already gave it to you. You're sitting on acres of land, and here's the answer. You're sitting on acres of land. You're all debating on what to do about it. And in the meantime, there is a way to create new revenue streams and income by converting it into housing or highest and best use into an art gallery. I'm so moving in this direction of how do we solve for a multiplicity of different kinds of real estate types that churches own. And then stay true to your vision and mission. It can get worse. Everything can get worse. It's pretty bad. And the further you go from a focus on your vision and mission, the sooner your church doors are going to close. When you get rooted in mission and vision again, you have a powerful message that you can bring back to the street, to investors, to lenders, to developers, to the city. You don't get what you don't ask for. Guys, what we've found is one of our churches that was truly on the ropes. When we really dug deep into vision and mission and what their intention was and really held their hand through that visioning process is when we realized we could go to the city, we could go to the state, and we could start asking for low interest loans and these kind of different grants. So I'll just say that church has become now, on paper, because of the amount of grants and funding we've got through foundations, is now the highest. It has the chance of having the highest returns. And it was considered, quote unquote, the dog in our pipeline. Without getting into details, that's because they refocused on their vision and mission and got some spiritual sleep and then started calling me and said, we could call the mayor. There's this group that we forgot we had talked to 4 years ago. We've just been so focused on problems that we forgot about all the people we know that could help us. That church led the fundraising effort for Logos, and they were truly on the ropes. So what I would testify is, no matter how bad it is, when you go back to your main purpose, your standards, your visions, your principles, your morals, that oftentimes you'll move away from problems to solutions, and those solutions include funding and development solutions.
Is that the thesis of Logos?
Logos' thesis is that if we do one thing right, which is be in the business of helping churches be all they can be through real estate development, that the cards will kind of take care of themselves, and that we'll have an opportunity to do good and to do well and to do something that most people have walked away from, which is solving real estate problems in the faith-based arena. And since most people have walked away from it, churches most of the time get the B players and the C players. We don't want to just be an A player. We want to be the A plus, NE plus ultra real estate developer for churches and denominations.
See, I think what I find so interesting about this is that, every real estate developer knows the term, the thesis, the project thesis.
Yeah.
The main idea behind the project that's going to drive the growth.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm hearing, which is so interesting, is that Logos isn't necessarily always the group that is designing and developing the thesis itself. You're asking the churches to do it first and coming in and supporting them. And so that's just a different way of going about the process. I mean, it's community engagement, but it's something a lot more.
It's more, you're absolutely right. We're asking the churches to do it with us. And there have been times where we've felt that tiredness and that weight. Like, how are we going to get this through? And we brought that question back to the churches, who are, by the way, our full, free, and fair partner in the deals, right? And so there's no better person to bring your exhaustion or tiredness or your lack of being able to get through something than a good pastor. And here it is. When we allow our church partners to be pastoral and shepherds and to fulfill their mission with us, we have been able to move mountains, guys. Meaning, and imperfectly, but we're getting better every month. When we treat them as full partners, they come up with solutions and ways forward that are sometimes astounding. And practically speaking, I'm talking about the capital stack, guys. I'm talking about we need $2 million and we'll at least be able to build this. But with $3 million, this thing flies. It's stellar returns. okay, talk to the VA. I know Doug Pierce over here, and I know this guy over here. Why didn't you tell us that 6 months ago, et cetera? So, well, you have got so many of your problems already. Yeah, but we love to serve. We're pastors. And truly making ways out of no way. In the year 2026, we're going to get even more catalytic and focused on having better conversations and asking better questions of our pastors, of our land partners, because so many times they solve the problem for us and with us.
The synergy is so great here. That's my next question.
We're in flow.
So if a pastor is listening right now, is asking themselves like, okay, can this work for my church?
Yeah.
What are the 2 to 3 kind of things you would counsel them to look for? You would ask the questions you would ask them initially to consider for themselves.
So programmatically, right, or process focused, it would be for them, we're talking to a pastor, to go to your prayer closet and go back to first principles and have the Lord remind you why you got into this business in the first place. And that's not the development business. That's in the shepherding business. And then to ratify what you think you're hearing with your church and to confirm with your church your vision and mission, and then to form a core team internally. And then I would say the fourth element is to decide upon the outcome you want first, before you talk to developers, before you come to Logos, before you reach out to the city. Find out, well, we don't know what outcomes we want. You do. Do a little research, and it can be as simple as, well, we actually want to serve vets in general, and we want to reignite our feeding ministry. Okay, well, we can go from there. Backstopping that would be past is prologue to the present and the future. Really research what your church did 30 or 40 or 50 years ago in what you would call your heyday. Almost all of it is there. And what you've done in the past is probably DNA for what you can do again in the present and the future. And then behind that, you know more, Pastor, you know more people than you think you do. Your church members know more people than they think they do. We are coming to the radical realization at Logos Development that almost all of the solutions to church development are in the hands of the churches themselves, almost all of it. We backstop it with a focus on being able to provide the guarantees, the financial guarantees, and sign the loan docs and provide the expertise. So we provide the guarantees and we provide the expertise. But much of the rest of it can be addressed through vision, mission, unity, and what is it you're seeking to do, and what did you do before that worked really well, and then reach out to Logos.
Nice. Love it.
Wonderful.
One more question around the finance piece, and we'll call this, maybe a public service.
And I'm happy to talk about the capital stack. I don't suppose. Oh,
yeah.
Wow, we're vibing. There it is.
More going like public service announcements related to, financing is hard. I mean, just for standard deals with, savvy developers that are just trying to get underwriting to work. With what you're working on and the product types that you've seen out there from investors, from lenders, from banks, is there enough out there? Is there a message you want to put out there to the larger institutions, whether it's the Chase Banks of the world or the bigger financial institutions that say, hey, we need help in this area, whether it's impact financing. We both work with Adam Miller and Better Angels.
Yeah, totally.
He's coming up with a really unique product type that is focused on providing great financing for these types of products. But he's really one of the first I've seen out there. So what is it that the market needs to kind of know and say, hey, we need more of this in the market right now if we want to see this mission continue to, grow over the U.S. over the next 5 years?
Work with a developer that doesn't have to purchase any land and can bring a nonprofit status in to forgo all the tax issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, deal.
Done. As easy as it sounds and as difficult as it actually is. That means you need to work with a developer that has got a pipeline of institutions, nonprofit institutions that already trust you and want to put their land, contribute their land, and contribute really platinum level status, a 501c3 from a church. That means they've been doing filings right. That means a lot of things behind that, right? So, my message to the capital markets is we are as good as any developer. Our model stands up like any of the other guys and gals you're talking to. but we allow you to serve angels and to actually be able to work or play in a sandbox that is so vision and mission enriched. Institution, Chase, whomever it is, when you first opened that impact office and you first got excited about impact, we're the whole ball game. We're the community's already bought in by the time we strike a deal with the church, because if 100 or 200 or 300 members of that church have voted almost unanimously or totally unanimously to do this project, that means an entire community has spoken. So then what I would say is we're as razor sharp, but if you want that edge, if you want that impact edge, it's resolve the tax issue and don't pay for the land, and that's the core element of our model.
Well, I think that leads to probably one of my final questions, which is, do you think this is something that could scale nationally?
All developments local, and all developments local, and all good development has most of similar elements. And I may get the name wrong, but I'm trying to name a couple of organizations we both know and love, for example. So In Principle Prime Store, In Principle Related, is national, but they have local offices dealing with local ordinances and local permitting processes and local politics and local community engagement and needs. I think that what Logos is doing can be scaled smartly if we remember that all real estate problems are solved locally. What we are trying to do is create the technology carefully, actually through EOS planning. I don't know if I've just dropped it. but the cooperative is helping us to think about business better by engaging in a business solution strategy platform called EOS. May not be describing it very well. That allows us to surface our talents and think about growth and scaling without losing any focus. What I would say is, how do we use AI going forward, and how do we use technology going forward, not as this panacea, but in a really well thought out way to scale? That may provide the solution to being able to scale nationally. Now, what does that mean for Logos? Well, we are in Portland, we are in California, we are in Colorado. We're almost regionally, but for me right now to be truly regional and then one day national, I've got to get the next 4 projects right here in LA. Oh, you've just walked away from a national solution. No. For today, I'm going to get the next 4 projects right in LA. We're going to resolve in Portland. We're going to resolve in Colorado. And then we're going to leverage technology and leverage AI to provide a national solution. Well, aren't you worried about all the competition? Except for the federal government. I mean, this is sort of like apocryphal. But except for the federal government, I don't know any larger landowner than churches and denominations. There could be 30 Logoses. I'm more worried on us sticking to vision and mission and remembering why we got into this and why we're doing this, and hugging and holding our churches closely to us and empowering them. The rest of it will 100% take care of itself, which includes one of my goals, which is to be one of the largest, capable, able developers that you can be, guys. We're going to do it by focusing on vision and mission, focusing on God, and really focusing on helping the church realize solutions to their problems and the results that they're seeking.
I love it.
You want to bring us home?
Yeah, I mean, very exciting. And I think, you have a model that scales nationally without a doubt. And you're taking all the right steps to do it. And just the fact that you have said, we're going to take a breath and make sure we execute locally is just the indicator that you are going to be successful scaling nationally, because that's the right way to go about it. And you already have that mentality of let's lock it down here and make sure that when we do go out to the market, that's the right way to do it. And then again, like you said before, it's unlimited pipeline across the U.S., which is shocking across the board.
Shocking.
For any type of developer or finance group or anything. So very exciting to see where you're going to take it. We know you're coming back in a couple weeks. We're going to talk more about the execution side when it comes to construction and development. I think we're going to bring Sean Jordan on board.
And we'll bring some of my development team on board as well, 100%.
Team's coming on board, Ryan potentially, and the rest of the team. And we're going to talk about, hey, how are you executing boots on the ground?
Yeah.
I know people are fascinated by that, so we'll get into the nitty gritty. And
Yeah.
can't wait to have you back.
Well, look, I mean, let me again plug away. So, I mean, my hope is that becomes a Logos cooperative conversation because the reality of our boots on the ground right now, our infantry and our cavalry,
Yep.
right, and our tanks, we may be, let's just call Logos the cavalry, right, which is a pretty fun place to be. You're on a horse with lots of cool equipment and stuff. But a part of our infantry and a part of our tank brigades are the cooperative.
Yeah.
And all the other third parties you bring. So that's we're solving this widget together.
Yeah.
By the way, what's the message there? We will spend on excellence. 17% return goes to a 15% return. Yeah, but it goes to a 100% executable project. And by the way, the return goes back to 18 or 19% because there's cost savings found and other anomalies we didn't see. So we are long-term players. And we can't be midterm or short-term. We're really long-term players. And so I'm excited to have that Logos cooperative conversation.
All right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Oh, appreciate you.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
Totally. This is great.
It's
yeah.
great.
Thank you.